guys, my name is Cece Rose and welcome back to my channel. Regardless of how you make your money, if you are making the money and there's other people in the sector that aren't, then you might know something that other people don't know. So in the spirit of straight flexing, I'm kidding. This is like a totally spiritual forward video. We are going to talk about how to create a money consciousness. I have to debunk some of the rumors, and I talk about this in most of my videos. I do OF, yes, I'm aware, I do it. I also did mainstream for a little bit as well. I don't anymore, but I'm aware of that. I'm top 50 on the hub, I know, okay? I know this. Despite all of the antics that I have somehow got myself into, I was very successful before that. The thing that differentiates me back then and me now is that now I just give a fuck a lot less about judgments that I receive from other people. For me, when I was a bit younger, I started working when I was 16 years old. I worked my ass off. I never stopped working. My first job was at Subway. If someone needed a shift covered, didn't matter what I was doing it. I was trying to make the most amount of money as possible. And then outside of working at Subway, I got another job. I worked at TJ Maxx and I just balanced the two. I was always working multiple jobs. I was never just working one job. I worked at different retail stores. I started bartending and then I worked at multiple bars. So I was always having more than one income and an extremely good work ethic where I did nothing else but work. And that to me was satisfying because of the monetary value, and I did know that money, even as young as I was at the time, equaled freedom, and it still does. While I was at school and I was working on getting my associate's degree, I got my bachelor's degrees, and I also had a minor. I still realized, on top of the importance of educational work ethic, that physical work ethic in the career field was also a priority, because you can be a college student and have good grades and all, but I didn't come from money, so I'm not going to be a broke college student either. I'm going to make my own money regardless. So I was going to school full-time and I was working my ass off, and I worked at 2 bars and I made about $2,000 to $3,000 a week just working at the bars and going to school and having good grades because I actually cared about that. So this is not to have some sort of chip on my shoulder. It's just to say that I was always active when it came to materializing finances for myself at a very young age. When I would get paychecks for $200 or $300 at my first job working for Subway, I also would express extreme gratitude. I would be like, oh my God, I have so much money. I do not know what to do with all of this. I had a lot of respect for money. I understood that you have to work to get it. I never asked for handouts. When I got to a certain point and I had graduated and I had X amount of money saved from working so hard, I started my own business and I made a lot of money doing what I was doing in my business. And I had a lot of gratitude for that as well. And I would work on the weekends and I would take multiple clients a day, and I just didn't stop because I never wanted to be in the position where, one, I felt sorry for myself because I didn't have enough money to pay the bills. 2, I didn't have enough money to get whatever I wanted in my life. 3, I didn't have enough money to have the experiences that I wanted in my life. Like, money does actually equal freedom, unfortunately enough. And it's not the case that money equals happiness either. Money doesn't equal happiness. I know people that are literally pushing Ferraris. I live in Miami that hate themselves, so there's that. Money just equals the ability to choose. So being happy is a choice also. Making money is a choice. Having a good work ethic is a choice. There is a pattern that goes about life where it's just a string of choices. I did not do what I do now as a last resort. I didn't even do mainstream as a last resort. I did it because I'm a dabbler. I like to dabble in things. I'm also a bit wild. I also did get to a point where in my consciousness, I was like, it doesn't matter what people say about me. I come from a small town that was extremely judgmental. There was maybe 15,000 people that lived there, and everyone knew everyone, and everyone was talking bad about me. And I started an OF in that small town, and I had 30 people on there, and they all worked at this power plant that was super popular to work at, and it's still very popular. It's the only place that you can be successful with in this town that I'm from. And everyone was on my OF and they were talking about it, and it was one of those things. For a split second, I was a little bit of the talk of the town, I guess, in a non-egotistical way, because they weren't being nice with the things that they were saying. It didn't matter to me. I wanted to push it a step further and do mainstream. That's how much it mattered to me. And after stopping mainstream for 3 months, I chose to do OF as a full-time, basically, career. And my wealth and my finances skyrocketed. So to be quite frank, I have never had issues with money. I'm not saying that at all to rub people the wrong way, to say that I have X, Y, and Z and you don't. The reason that I'm simply saying it the way that I'm saying it is because if you want to never have an issue with money, and this is from someone that did not have money growing up, I will tell you that, you need to work your ass off. You need to work your ass off first and foremost. It is one of those things that people are like, oh, just get a job, just go to work. No, get a job, a full-time job, and then get a job at night if that's what you need to do. And get a bartending job on the side. People do say more money, more problems, but if you do have money, you can fix whatever problem you have, at least in the material world. In the mind, that takes a completely different approach. But one of the main reasons that I never struggle with money, outside of the idea that of course physically you do have to take action, if you're just sitting there, of course everyone wants to be a millionaire. I work with people, and I have another business outside of OF. I work with people that say, okay, well, I want to make $7,000 a month. It's like, yeah, and I want to make $1 million an hour, but I'm not going to do that, and you're not going to do that if you don't put the work in. So it is one of those things that it's very cut and dry. It is very linear, unfortunately enough. You have to work harder. You have to value the discipline more than you value the way that things are making you feel at the time. Yeah, you're going to be exhausted, unfortunately enough. That's a byproduct of working your ass off, but another byproduct of working your ass off is reaping the benefits. And at the end of the day, once you finally get the amount of money that you were striving for, that you spent all those days exhausting yourself over, that you finally obtained after all the judgments and all the chatter is over, and people maybe didn't believe in you and people said that you were working too much, XYZ, those benefits really did outweigh those days where you just didn't want to get up out of bed. That being said, the mindset is what we're really going to be talking about. The mindset is what we're diving into. Because some people, unfortunately enough, will work their ass off and then they think that that is enough. And it's not, because you will be working your ass off in the wrong sectors of things. You might be overworking at the job, at your minimum wage job, and maybe you have 2 of them. But to be honest, the thing is, you have to mix a good work ethic with an overabundant mindset. If you're really, really, really working, but you're overextending yourself for a little amount of pay, so you're stepping over dollars to pick up pennies per se, you're not really going to get to the place that you want to be at. Nobody really, unfortunately, is going to get rich working for someone else. The reason that people decide not to be explorative with this and they want to just stick with their 9 to 5 and they just want to work for someone is because number 1, it's easy. Number 2, it's comfortable. Number 3, society has indoctrinated us to believe that. And number 4, it's just one of those things that you don't have to think much about. If you want to really make some substantial money, you actually have to put yourself out there. And that is not necessarily in the way that I put myself out there, I will say. It's more in the idea that you need to be an entrepreneur. You need to get paid for your creativity. You need to actually step outside of your comfort zone, step outside of the box that society has kind of put you in, and blaze your own trail and have a self-belief that is so unshakable that you realize that I can do anything because other people are doing this as well. So if those people are doing this, then why can't I? When I was younger, of course, I was 16 years old. I did have an unshakable self-belief. And granted, I worked at, Subway and TJ Maxx and different retail stores, and I bounced around. I still kept working because I had the self-belief that I'm not going to be doing this forever. I'm just young. but I will be rich someday, because that is a perception that I hold for myself that I will not let go. It is not an option to fail at anything that I do ever. It was never an option for me, and I was not raised like that. I developed that self-belief on my own, and that is not to toot my own horn. It's just to say that even when I was younger and I would go through school, sometimes people would bully me, and at one point someone was like, what are you even gonna do in your life? And I said, I'm gonna be famous. Am I famous? Not really, but sometimes people do actually come up to me on the streets and they want a picture with me, and it's actually kind of hilarious. The whole point is I developed a mindset that enabled the energy of money to continuously flow to me. And because that energy of money was continuously attracted to me, you don't attract what you want, you actually just attract what you are. So me working my ass off all throughout my younger years, and even now, I just got done filming a whole day of reels. I already filmed another YouTube video. I'm filming this YouTube video now, and I'm doing my customs today. It's not to say that every day looks like this, okay? It's just to say that when you have that momentum going and you have that work ethic and you're like, failing is not an option, I'm going to be rich, I'm going to make as much money as I possibly can, like I'm gonna have generational wealth, whatever it is that you want, and you just keep going, and you're actually really living that truth because you're not giving up on yourself, because you know that you deserve more, money will just start to come because you have become something that money is attracted to. It's not because you want this and you want that and you're sitting around at your house thinking, damn, this person's driving a Rolls Royce, I wish I could afford a Rolls Royce. Well, maybe you could if you got off your ass. Maybe you could if you didn't just work your part-time job. Maybe you could if you actually prioritized having a better work ethic. You need to put yourself in the energy of your desired reality. I've started reading Narrow Knowledge's book, Outsmarting Your Reality. I think I'm on like the 3rd or 4th chapter. And it talks about how your old frequency will not let go of you until you finally master living in the frequency of your desired reality. So to be honest, that is one of those things that, of course, in any sort of self-explorative, self-progression type journey is difficult to really conceptualize. Basically, it's just stating common mindset shifts that you have to start to identify with that your older self wouldn't. So say that you're a subpar person who is just working a part-time job, and you see people that have a lot of money and you constantly envy them. You tie all your self-worth to the lack of funds that you have, and you see a Rolls Royce driving down the street and you look at the Rolls Royce and you think to yourself, wow, I wish I had that. Why does this person have that and I don't? That is a frequency that you know that you don't want to be in. Because why? It makes you feel miserable, it makes you depressed, and you feel bad for yourself. And you do feel like your self-worth is a bit lessened because you can't afford that. If you're trying to progress past those type of thoughts and actually welcome in an abundance mindset, you will start to deteriorate your old frequency. When you look at people in nice cars, you will think to yourself, wow, that person has a really nice car. I'm gonna have that very soon. That's gonna be mine soon. Or how about, I can afford that. I'm glad that person has a nice car. I can afford that too. Maybe I'll get a matching one. And that is how you start to dissolve your old frequency. When I was younger, I used to be very temperamental. I used to get very miserable extremely fast, and I would be very irritable. And that was because of potentially the environment that I grew up around. It was potentially a genetic disposition. But I decided at a younger age to really internally work on that because it does not serve me. Being irritable, temperamental, quick to react negatively to things, it's extremely damaging if you are trying to reconstruct a new frequency for yourself. If you are trying to be someone successful, if you're trying to be someone who's optimistic, who welcomes money in, who has a good work ethic, who's motivated, who's disciplined, who sees the world in a more positive light. Once you return back to being irritable or being miserable or being angry about little things and allowing your energy to be disrupted for even a split second, you have already derailed your new frequency. You have already derailed your desired reality because you are defaulting back to your old frequency. So it's really important to stay on track. People make fun of me for being overly optimistic every once in a while. I will wake up on a really rainy day and just be like, oh my God, it's a beautiful day. I tell my best friend Tom every day, Tom, it's a beautiful day. And he'll be like, is it though? And I'm like, it is. Because honestly, at the end of the day, it's really just a beautiful day to just fucking be alive. Like, how the hell did we even get here? People don't even understand why or how we're here. First of all, let's really deduce this to the most mind-blowing, underrated concepts in this world. How are we here? Why are we here? I go through a mini existential crisis almost every day, but it's just to say that in a world where we're not even completely sure what the fuck is going on with our existence, why would we ever choose to think negatively? It's a blessing that we're alive. It's a blessing that we're here. The world will give you exactly what you give it. The world will see you in the way that you see yourself, and everything is a mere perception. Everything is a perception. Everything is a projection. So why would you go into this world and think, damn, I could never have the confidence enough to do this. I could never have the work ethic enough to have this abundance. I'm never going to sign X amount of clients. I'm never going to be a successful YouTube star. I'm never going to make it in the OF world. I'm never going to be a successful influencer. Why the fuck would you talk to yourself like that? Honestly, like, why in a world where we have no answers are you sitting here doubting yourself? You can either be negative and disrupt your energy, and that's the frequency, unfortunately, that you'll vibrate on, or you can be positive and uplift your energy, and you will vibrate from a higher frequency, which in turn is you vibrating from your higher self, which is idealistically the only vibrational frequency that's actually going to help you achieve whatever it is you're set to achieve. Most people want to be rich and they want to be happy. Simple. How about you stop looking at making more money as this uphill battle? How about you stop looking at starting a new business as this long-term struggle? Why? It is the beauty of perception. The reason that you are looking at it like it's difficult, and I'm not at all saying that you could just materialize this by closing your eyes and waking up and boom, you have a 6-figure business before your eyes. Of course you need to put some work in. Like, let's not be 100% delusional, but let's change the way that we are perceiving the action behind it. It's easy. I tell myself all the time, it's easy to make money. It's easy to be rich. It's easy to be motivated. And a great way to actually allow that to permeate your mind is to create a brain-heart coherence, where your brain and your heart, you can actually feel the emotion of it being easy. You can actually feel the emotion of yourself being rich. You can actually feel yourself getting into the Rolls Royce, and you can actually feel yourself obtaining everything that you want to obtain, paying off your family's house or whatever it may be. It takes a bit of practice, but you learn it through meditation, and you can feel a feeling exude from your body, and that is a positive energy being pushed out into the universe, and the universe is only going to respond positively to that. It's one of those things that all my life I was subjected around people that thought that life was such a struggle, and I'm not trying to be dismissive of people that have very difficult lives. I am very aware that there are people in this world that have no food, no water, no shelter. I am confused every day why I'm here and they're there, and I didn't grow up in a place of much struggle. I'm extremely grateful that I'm in America. I'm making this video to say that even people that are not born in the best case scenarios will only benefit from adopting these mindsets, because thoughts are materialized frequencies, and frequencies are energy, and energy is everywhere in this world, and energy is also the universe's communicative language. So when you are always telling yourself that this is a struggle and that is a struggle and I'll never have enough money to do this, you are just reaffirming that into your reality. And we need to stop the negative self-talk, and we need to stop the limited beliefs. You do realize that the more that you tell yourself that, the more you're just materializing that for yourself, because the universe is only giving you what it thinks that you already have, which is why I always tell myself, this is not a struggle, this is easy. I'm rich and I'm happy and I'm successful. And I have not told myself differently since I was like 15 years old. There's so much power behind that. There is even so much power when you go to the store though and you say, oh wow, I wish I could afford that. I have people in my life that do that shit all the time. They literally will say to me, wow, I wish I could afford that. Wow, I wish I could do that. It's like, you can. The thing is, if I can, why can't you? And my stick is that even if I didn't do OF, I would have done something else just as successful. And I know that because I have a very firm belief in myself that I can achieve anything that I want to achieve. When you start operating on a higher frequency and you really adopt an actual, concrete, genuine, authentic self-belief because you realize that you have nothing else to lose, you can be negative and sit and wallow in your sorrows, or you can be positive and actually see the positive impact that it has on your life. Which one are you going to choose? You will start to see that life just gets lighter. Life gets easier. Little inconveniences don't bother you as much as they did anymore. You need to start fixing your perception. Consciousness in general is such an enigma. What the fuck is consciousness? People don't even think that deep into it. You can create any form of consciousness that you want to, which is on neuroplasticity essentially, but the way that you see things is a choice. We talked earlier about choices. You need to choose to be more positive. You need to choose not to identify with struggle. You need to choose to be abundant. You need to choose the reality that there is so much abundance, there's so much money circulating in this world. You need to choose the idea that you are worthy of that, or else it will never come. So you need to realize that the reason that you are poor and that you are struggling is actually because of you. And first and foremost, you do need to take accountability. So to be honest, that should have been number one. Take accountability for your actions. You could be making more money than the richest person that you know. The reason you're not, that's on you. That's on you to figure out. But it's never too late to start, and it doesn't start necessarily from working multiple jobs. Of course, working multiple jobs and really having a great physical work ethic is definitely going to push you. Do not be lazy by any means, but if you want to get to the secondary level of being actually wealthy and being rich, then you need to expand your mindset and you need to think bigger. So it's the action and it's the internal adjustment. The action, of course, will push things into the physical realm, but the internal adjustment will push things out to the spiritual, and there's duality in everything. So you can't have physical without having spiritual, and vice versa. You can't just work your ass off and then just think you're going to be wealthy. And honestly, sometimes that is the case, but the internal adjustment isn't just about necessarily being wealthy. It doesn't just constitute creating more money. Of course, that's sort of what we're here for, is to be rich and to have a lot of abundance, but it also makes your life just that much more enriched to live. When you wake up every day and you look at yourself in the mirror and you say, I'm rich, I have all the money that I need, I have more than enough money, money is flowing to me, money is circulating, and it's always going in my pockets, and whatever affirmations you want to use, how are you not going to eventually just develop a more positive aura about yourself? It just innately is a byproduct of adopting that money mindset. God said that he created you in his own image. Who is God at the end of the day? He is essentially a creator. So why do you think that you were put on this earth to struggle, and why are you identifying with that? If God is a creator and you were created in his own image, then he made you to create. So create the life that you deserve, that you want to create, and do it first and foremost from the mind. Of course, as I've said multiple times, yes, work your ass off, but work on being introspective. And there's nothing wrong with looking at things with rose-colored glasses. It doesn't just constitute money. It constitutes being more positive about negative experiences. Being positive about a negative experience is a positive experience, and being negative about a positive experience is a negative experience. There are some things in this world that will just happen, and that's unadulting. I had a car that I just bought and ended up having so many problems. I think that I was at the dealership, I'm not over exaggerating, 10 times since I've had the car. And of course, it gets a little frustrating here and there, but I don't put too much energy towards it. And why? Because then I'm draining myself, and then I'm taking away from other things that I should be focusing on. So when you just kind of look at things with more amusement rather than more annoyance, life just gets lighter. It's like, oh, this is wrong. Damn, that sucks. Okay, I guess I'll get it fixed. Boom, problem solved instantly, and then move forward and keep going and keep going and keep going. And you'll realize that your life, yes, is lighter. You start to look at things with less frustration. You start to live the life that you deserve because you can kind of move through the hurdles without it being this absolute catastrophe every time. And not only will you just roll with the punches and your life will just flow a lot easier, but you will realize that abundance just comes and abundance just comes and abundance just comes. And after a while, you start to identify that as your normal self. You start to identify that with your norm. Things will happen. You'll get frustrated just for a split second. You'll give yourself that minute. And then you don't default back to the old frequency. You just keep going. And when you keep going, you will realize that the abundance is also flowing because you made that choice to change. And we are supposed to change. As we move through life, that's what it's about. It's about changing. It's about doing the shadow work. It's about doing the inner work. It's about doing the introspection. But it's also about realizing that the people that are more successful than you are not even necessarily smarter than you. They don't even necessarily have an edge per se on you that you don't have. You are not lacking in any way. You just need to apply yourself more, and you need to change your mindset. The only reason that we even think that life is difficult to live is because society has indoctrinated us to think that life was difficult to live, because it's easier for us to be controlled if society has manipulated us into thinking that it's hard. If we have a lot of stress and we have a lot of anxiety and we have a lot of instabilities going on because society has indoctrinated us to think that life is always supposed to be a struggle, it's very easy for us to just do whatever it is to alleviate that. We sit on our phones, or we have 10 hours of screen time a day. We're going to our 9 to 5 that we hate. We're abiding by everything that society is telling us to abide by, and it's just a lot of structure. We're too scared to fail, so we never apply ourselves in the first place. And it's unfortunate that we have been indoctrinated in the first place that way, but there is a reversal to indoctrinate yourself to think differently, to think that life is not a struggle. There was a 1 in 400 billion chance that you're even here in the first place. So what is that telling you? Everyone was here for a reason. Everyone deserves to be rich. Everyone deserves to be wealthy. Everyone deserves abundance. Everyone deserves to be fulfilled. Everyone deserves to experience love. There's no person more deserving than you. And if you aren't practicing thinking that every single day, then you are just doing a disservice to yourself. Be disciplined, be consistent, look at what other people have, and do not ever envy. Envying is a sin, apparently, in the Bible. Why is it a sin? Let's talk about that for a second. Probably because the Bible also understands, and God also is very understanding and has made this concept himself, that when you envy someone, it says to them, and it says to yourself, that you lack that, and you don't, is a thing. You are perfectly capable. You have the same amount of hours in the daytime. You are breathing. You are able to walk around, hopefully, and you are just blessed to even be created and be on this earth in the first place. You lack nothing that someone else has, because when you look at someone in envy, you are choosing not to see your own potential. The universe is very abundant. The universe does not have a budget. Reshape your reality by reshaping the way you think. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this video, and I will see you next time.